Design of land developments, whether in Russia, Guatemala, or San Antonio, are geometrically similar. Here, when we submit a site plan that meets and exceeds all of the regulations in zoning, we must present a concept plan to the City Planning Commission and get an opinion. Then that goes to council at a public meeting for their feedback. At each stage, neighbors will complain about what's being proposed in their backyard. Then, a few months later, after the engineering is completed, we again go through the same process for preliminary plat approval. And again, the nearby residents will find every excuse why the plan that meets and exceeds all regulatory requirements should never be built. If the City Council or Planning Commission, who are being televised, might fear audience scrutiny or political standing, well, they might find some reason to delay approvals on a development even when it exceeds code. Working outside the USA is much different. All of our international work is designed to final plat accuracy, but it will always exceed existing minimums while complying with a designated land use. After the plan is submitted to the government agency, it's checked for compliance while it's being engineered for utilities and grading. When everything falls within existing constraints and land use, there is no need for public meetings. It just gets stamped as approved and construction begins. Why even have regulations in zoning if developers have to spend months or years defending a plan that meets all of the regulations? Think about it. Russia created unique challenges designing Eleanor in Tomsk, Siberia. As a throwback from dense Russian projects of the Cold War era, regulations required a daycare to be within 500 meters of any residence. Services such as groceries, pharmacy, and others needed to be in close proximity. Wealthy Russians desire American suburban-style living over being on the 10th floor of a project. And the developers of Eleanor first tried to emulate our methods to create a more elegant neighborhood, but without success. They eventually retained us to develop the plan, which complied with Russian code and was quickly approved. However, Russian code was intended for dense growth, not sprawling low-density estates. Part of the sanction code was that a daycare needed to be built within no more than 500 meters of any resident. Thus, our low-density development of just 513 homes had to be designed with 4 large daycare facilities. Russian homes appear very much like American suburban homes. They are built with thick concrete walls. What is different is that every home has a very large sauna room and a massive rear patio with a deck above from the master bedroom. In Jamaica, there are no curved streets, at least from a platting perspective. It seems that Jamaican land surveyors either don't know how to lay out a curve or calculate curve boundaries. They instead use short, straight segments, which means a 10-meter wide street will have its right-of-way width vary randomly along curved lanes. In Jamaica, as well as many South American nations, there are huge financial incentives that subsidize families to leave the dense urban slums into new suburban-style housing. Unfortunately, from what we have seen, most of these developments we have visited seem like a new suburban slum. The identical home built thousands of times on a cookie-cutter grid, on land that bulldozed nature to create a sea of rooftop and pavement. This simply trades one slum for another, defeating the government's purpose to subsidize a change. The builders who contract with us desire to improve the growth pattern. In Panama, where severe grades are an issue, we harness the natural terrain to minimize economic and environmental impacts, as seen here as part of a master plan which will house nearly 10,000 families without destroying the mountainous wooded terrain. Speaking of mountainous terrain, let's take a look at the apartment neighborhood we designed in Guatemala. The original plan at first appears straightforward, but they were not able to make it work with the severe grades. We were able to solve the grading problems and comply with all the existing regulations to make the neighborhood workable. The east building would have a bridge from the parking area to an entrance on the 5th floor. And we were able to somewhat balance the earthwork at the same time. There are over 20 neighborhoods we've designed in Bogota, starting with the revolutionary Fontanar by Amarillo. They provide housing from low-income to exclusive high-income neighborhoods and cutting-edge master plan communities that we've designed for them. We have actually seen buyers wait in line at their sales offices that are far more comprehensive than any we've ever seen in the USA. They provide the same attention to design and detail on low income or high income, and they treat every buyer, no matter what social status, as special. It's truly amazing as to what they have done in a city that was once known as being the worst place in the world and now is becoming a destination place. We then take you to Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, where we've been offered an advisor as well as a design position for the development of King Abdallah Economic City and Jazan. These were to be two of the most advanced large cities in the world, but quickly planned and, in our opinion, not very well thought out. On a small section of the existing plan, we demonstrated the problems with the existing design, and then we explained how we could use the methods we invented to significantly improve the individual pods as well as the overall function of the city. Even though the Saudi Arabia cities seem to pay attention to pretty interesting public sculptures, the overall pattern of development is incredibly mundane and extremely inefficient. The entrance into King Abdallah Economic City is impressive, as is their sales office. Unfortunately, 2 days after being offered the position, the crash of Dubai took down the entire Middle East, and my contacts were no longer in charge. Today, the mundane, inefficient patterns of Saudi growth are being replicated. What would it have looked like if Dubai had not crashed? In this nation, the approval system on plans that meet both zoning and regulatory minimums must go through a time-consuming and costly process. It significantly increases the cost of a home. Maybe it's time we learn lessons from other nations, not saying their systems are perfect either. Like everywhere on this planet, there are developers and builders that strive to exceed regulations and create wonderful neighborhoods. And there are those that think only of the short-term profit, but leaving a long-term problem. In order to somewhat guarantee that we can build wonderful neighborhoods instead of projects, the systems in place should reward better growth. Maybe it's time to think differently about the processes of growth, no matter where you are in this world.